Hi, welcome to Jesus on the Fly.
Welcome back. Here we are.
We're going to talk about today, as always, in every Jesus on the Fly, Jesus' words and actions in the gospel in a non-intimidating devotional way. So today we're going to read Matthew 10, verses 16 through 25. And I'm in charge of reading because Dave doesn't have his glasses. Okay, here we go.
True.
Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Beware of men, for they will deliver you over to courts and flog you in their synagogues. And you will be dragged before governors and kings for my sake, to bear witness before them and the Gentiles. When they deliver you over, do not be anxious how you are to speak or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given to you in that hour. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will deliver brother over to death, and the father his child, and children will rise up against parents and have them put to death. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. When they persecute you in one town, flee to the next. For truly I say to you, you will not have gone through all the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. A disciple is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for the disciple to be like his teacher and the servant like his master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more will they malign those of his household? Wow. Okay, so there's going to be a lot happening while we wait for Jesus to come back for us, right? That's like one of the gists, right?
Yeah. I'm just like, I honestly am a little confused.
Well, it's
is
a
it
lot.
Jesus on the Fly that is like, it takes a little bit of study, I think, to figure out this one.
So that's a good point. So Jesus on the Fly, we literally do it on the fly. We don't look things up, but there is a place for looking things up.
Always.
That is important, right?
Always.
And so even when you hear Jesus on the Fly, you want to go back and look deeper at what we're talking about and look at, some biblical scholars and, talking to pastors who know Greek and Hebrew and stuff, and your church workers, because it's not always best on the fly, but the digging in is totally worth it. And our goal here is to start that process.
And also, so is this going to be our last Jesus on the Fly?
Can you talk about that later?
Sure.
I don't know why you're bringing that up right now. Can you? No, it's
of
not the last Jesus on the Fly
you don't
forever.
Know what I'm going to say.
Right. How about you talk about the passage?
Well, there's the whole thing where I think the coolest thing about this passage for sure is don't worry about what you're going to say. When you're under persecution, God will give you the words to say. It's not you speaking, it's the Spirit speaking, through you and stuff. And I know a lot of people are afraid, what would happen if, we lived in a nation or something where if, you were confronted and had to say you believed in Jesus, otherwise they would kill you or put you in jail or do something else. That would be a lot of suffering for you. And so I just think that this applies to that. If you're put in that position where you have to either confess your faith and be killed or not, I just think that you will be ready at that point.
You'll know what to do.
And that's what this is kind of saying. Some people are afraid, oh, I don't know what I would do,
Right.
And it's just well, yeah, we kind of don't know what we would do, but God will give us the strength in that time. So I think that's pretty cool. And then
that is cool. I have a thought on that. I don't know if you want me to interrupt. But
no, go ahead.
Okay, one thing I thought as you were saying that is that is such an awesome thing that God gives us the Spirit and we'll know what to say. But also I think we over apply this all the time where we're we're not under pressure. We're not being persecuted. We're not at death's door for our faith, and we're not preparing for what we're going to say. So I think we take this where Jesus says, don't worry, you'll be giving the words to say. And we don't do anything in our regular life to prepare for having a conversation with someone we care about Jesus, or when we're going to walk into the world and we're at work and stuff, and there's opportunities to share about Jesus. And so I think it's really interesting that, yes, the Spirit's always there and the Spirit always is doing the work, right? And giving us the words. But there's a place for preparation and there's a place for not preparation. And both those things are good. We can't just be well, I just like let it come as it is. Like when, whatever, however God's going to work for me. That is true sometimes. But at other times, God gives us skills and talents and the ability
Mm-hmm.
to study and be in the Word and stuff so that we can be ready to give an answer for the hope that is in us when we're
Mm-hmm.
confronted with the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that's
True.
interesting that it's within the context of like persecution, not just like any old time, don't worry about what you're going to say,
Mm-hmm.
even though we have the
Yeah.
Spirit. So
Right.
those are my thoughts on it. What was your other point?
No, I don't. I was wondering like what some of your thoughts are on some of the other verses.
Oh, really? Well, I think that there's just a lot of strong language. As we read Matthew this time for Jesus on the Fly, I feel like confronted with the fact that Jesus speaks so strongly, and so often we picture him so like softly. Like I think our version of Jesus
Mm-hmm.
culturally is a little off, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Yeah.
though he is he's the arms of the Savior, he's the arms who holds us and loves us, but he is also justice and truth, and he doesn't put up with much. Like he,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, in just because I was trying to figure out how far we were going to go in this chapter, at the end, it's like I've come to bring peace. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. And like this, all of a sudden, chapter 10, it's like Jesus is apparently hardcore now. Like
right? But at
he's
the same
like,
time, the other passages say, like, take heart, like I have overcome the world, like have peace. And so again, like you have to have both things.
yeah, and I think just it's starting to. This started off with like I'm sending you out as sheep among wolves, and it's like you're gonna get resistant opposition. You know, you're gonna get like attacks back at you for your faith, and like, and Jesus is saying like, okay, be prepared. This is gonna happen. Like, it actually says the one part that I just I'm like, yeah, I get that. It's like beware of men. It's like beware of people.
Just
It's like
beware.
that's it.
Just
I
know.
mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna be terrible. And it's not just like men. I mean,
It's
I think
like
it's meaning
humankind.
all
Yeah.
mankind. Like just beware of people.
Right. Again, with the softness
And
factor. Like we talked about this in our marriage video yesterday that comes out next week, that like we want to see people as essentially good. Scripture presents something different, that we hold the capabilities for both good and bad
yeah,
inside of us, and without Christ, like we will just like we
yeah,
we'll be capable of all the bad things
yeah,
and no good without God filling us and taking care of us, I guess.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that the the persecution Jesus says in that other passage, I don't remember where that's at, but he says, well, like, um, I know what men are like kind of deep down, and that's why I am not going to just kind of be unaware of the fact that like people will, turn on me, attack me for whatever it is. I mean, that was Jesus, and I think,
well, which is his point at the
yeah,
end.
and
Like,
he
if they're
knows
gonna do this to me,
like that this, yeah, they're gonna do, yeah, he says that too. Like, if they do this to me, they're gonna do it to you.
right?
So
The thing that goes along with that, I guess, and kind of my last thought before we wrap this up, and you might have a last thought too, is he doesn't tell us not to go, though. Like, I think that really stands out to me, that
yeah.
Jesus says relationships are going to be hard, people are going to be hard, beware.
Mm-hmm.
But he still says, I'm sending you out. Like, I'm still asking you to go. Like, this is still part of what we do and who we are. And, like, I think that's really significant, because it would be easy when we are like confronted with people are hard and life is hard and no one wants to hear the gospel. Like, we want to just stop. And I even, we are professional church workers. Like, this is what we do. And we're still like, I'll stop sometime. Like, I can't,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
And so we're all as Christians going to experience that weight of that. And that's, we turn to Jesus and we let him hold the weight. We just continuously abide in him, seek him. And he's really faithful, to give us what we need. Like, he sends us out and gives us what we need, which was like our video last week, right? Or the week before, like, take this and don't take this, and here's what you have for the journey and stuff like that. So always
Mhm.
in the whole context, I think it's really helpful. Do you have a final
Yeah.
thought before we sign off?
Well, it's kind of interesting because Jesus has a whole like dialogue at the end of like every gospel about the end times and stuff. And like this is like it's not saying like necessarily I feel like it's not like saying like the end times, it's like right now. Like so don't be like thinking like, oh, this will be long in the future. Like it's gonna be happening right now and it's
Mhm.
like don't um uh but it's kind of a sneak peek into his end times dialogue at the end too. So it's kind of strange how it's like Jesus is sending them out now
Mhm.
and they're going to get resistance now, but that will be like ultimately come to a head like in the end of the
That's a
time.
good point.
So
So just like we experience the end times, like the stuff now, the hard now, and the hard later that's like bigger,
mm,
we also that happens in the gospel itself, like how Jesus kind of presents it in the word. Like this is a sneak preview. That's
yeah.
really helpful.
Hmm.
Okay, so we just wanted to announce what we were mildly arguing about earlier, that this is going to be the last Jesus on the Fly until the fall.
Until the fall. So
Our kids are home from school. Peekaboo.
obviously it's difficult to film Jesus on the Fly with children. And
Speaking
so
of.
that will be why we're
So
not
yes,
doing it.
so look for
Yes.
us, premiere of Jesus on the Fly, season 3 next fall.
The nice thing about the right now is in the lectionary, if your pastor is following the lectionary, then this is exactly where we're picking up,
Oh, that's
rolling into June. It's
of
the same.
2020.
That's Matthew chapter 10, and it's going to roll through. I think probably I don't know. Continuing on Pentecost, it'll just go all the way through, so you can actually hear someone who studied it and then listen.
That's good. That's good. So we'll be back with Jesus on the Fly and a look at Matthew, and we'll move at the end of Matthew 10 through however farther we get in Matthew next year. We'll see you next time.
See ya.